Inside the mind of a betrayer or someone who has cheated. Leslie Wells, connection coach here. I help individuals work on their committed relationships to help them show up better, thrive, heal, repair, to have the relationship that they want and a relationship that is transformed. And I do that by looking at things through an attachment lens. Let me preface this by saying that under no circumstances whatsoever do I think cheating is acceptable. Cheating is a behavior of people that are broken, that are dealing with something within themselves. They may have unmet needs, but they also are usually not expressing those needs, or they are absolutely not going about getting them met in the right way. People who are securely attached, who are healthy, will set up boundaries. They will leave a relationship before they cheat. And so under no circumstances do I ever condone it or think that is acceptable. But I will give you some information today that I hope is not triggering to you, because I'm going to give you facts, and sometimes those facts can be a little touchy if we are looking at them through the wrong lens. So make sure that you're looking at this as a way to understand, but I am, again, not justifying anyone's behaviors or actions. So I already said that people who cheat or people who betray their partners are people who are not healthy and secure. And typically these individuals have their own trauma. This is a coping mechanism. It is something that they do to escape, to numb, to avoid. And so whether they are anxiously attached or avoidantly attached, a lot of times past trauma or not knowing how to get their needs met or their own insecure attachment wounds will lead them into this behavior. That is not an excuse. That is simply explaining how they can come to do this, whereas people that are healthy do not interact in this way. They don't do those things. So I think a lot of times when we think about someone who betrays their partner, we think that they're living their best life and they have their cake and they want to eat it too, and that they're on this fun, exciting journey. And there may be a little bit of validity to that because they are getting dopamine hits. And a lot of times, especially for avoidants who don't feel anything a lot of the time, they can't feel joy, fear, their feelings of pain and sadness, they suppress and shut everything down. So for them, this may be a way for them to feel more alive, excitement, that adrenaline rush. Don't confuse adrenaline with chemistry. Adrenaline is a sign that your body is trying to tell you that you are not safe, that a lot of people will confuse with chemistry. But they are getting those dopamine hits. If it's somebody who's an avoidant, they may feel a sense of accomplishment or achievement, or they may be able to go to a superficial relationship. And there's a lot of delusion that goes into this relationship where maybe they feel really bad about who they are and how they are unable to show up and how they feel inadequate to show up in their relationship and meet their partner's needs. Where a new partner who doesn't know them, doesn't know their flaws, has no expectations of commitment or expectations, period, they can appear to show up better and be someone that maybe they're not really at their core. And so it gives them that sense of fulfillment as far as feeling better about who they are and being able to show up better. Again, those are all lies that they buy into, and subconsciously they know that these are lies and delusions. But because a lot of people that are able to betray their partner are able to compartmentalize, they can sort of think that they can live out those two people. They can be the person who is loyal and committed and a good spouse, a good parent on one hand, and then they compartmentalize in another box, and they are the person who is living this secret life and compartmentalizing and doing things that they know are not okay. And in their mind, they can lie to themselves and tell themselves that those two worlds are not going to collide. And of course, subconsciously, they know that that is always a possibility and more than likely it's going to happen. And I can tell you from all of the people that I work with, including the people who do the betraying and the betrayed, that you are always going to get caught. So just go ahead and plan for that. So contrary to a popular belief, or what we tend to think about people who are betraying their partner, there is a lot of pain for someone who is doing this. For starters, they have the cognitive dissonance because their behavior does not match their values and their commitment. And deep down, they know that. And the amount of shame and guilt and self-loathing and, feeling just the regret and the fear and the grief and all of the things that are happening internal with them very much put them into a trauma response, a lot of times of fight or flight or even freeze, where they can be with their partner, their affair partner, and then they come home and they're just like in a functional freeze. They're just scrolling, they're detached. It's because they cannot face who they are being in that relationship with their affair partner versus who they are as far as their value systems and the difference between the two. Usually while they are still in the affair, they will become so detached from their partner, whether emotionally detached, even if they're not showing it on the outside, they are detached. This also very much affects their children. And so they have the guilt of knowing they're betraying their children as well. They're betraying their entire family, and they know that deep down. They're betraying their partner, which creates shame and guilt and bad feelings, and then also their children. And there's a disconnect, because when you're doing something to harm someone else and you subconsciously know that, you are going to disconnect from them emotionally and pull back and withdraw. That's why a lot of times you will see someone who is involved in an affair that will trash talk their partner, because they have to be able to live with what they're doing. And so painting them in a negative light or looking at them through a negative bias allows them to sort of shed some of that shame and allows them to sort of excuse what they're doing and blame it on their partner, blame shift. They very much experience a withdrawal similar to an addict. So if you have someone who is a drug addict and they get their high and they feel better for 5-10 minutes, and then they go through the withdrawal and the shame and the guilt of knowing what they're doing to those around them, knowing that it doesn't feel good. Maybe it felt great the first time they got high, but then after that they're always chasing that high, and they're left feeling empty and voided and guilty and shame and just feeling like a terrible person. And that's the same thing with an affair partner. Maybe you get your dopamine hit then when you send a text or you meet up or you have a chat, whatever. But whenever that goes away and you're back with your family and you're alone, all of those feelings come back similar to someone who is going through the withdrawal after they've gotten their high. But because the dopamine hits become addictive, and because that feeling becomes addictive, they will continue going back sometimes until something breaks that cycle or they decide to. So once everything comes out, and it will eventually come out, they are really in a similar place as far as the betrayed, as far as tons of healing work that needs to be done. So their first job, first and foremost, is to rescue the person that they betrayed, because that is the person that is drowning that needs rescuing the most. But at some point, once they have gotten that person to shore safely and that person is able to do their work, if they are staying to heal together, and I do have a lot of couples that do this, so that's kind of why I'm talking about that. If they decide to heal, their first responsibility is to help the person that they harmed. The second thing is to take time for themselves to do their own healing, because they are traumatized too. They are in a fight or flight. They don't feel safe in the relationship anymore because they still question whether or not their relationship is going to continue. Even if their partner has said they're going to stay, there are lots and lots of doubts and feelings of unsafety that their partner is not going to wake up one day, realize they can't forgive, get angry, and walk out that door. So they also have a lot of fears regarding safety in the relationship after that. They know what they've done to their partner. They're watching their partner pick themselves up and try to survive day after day after day. And so they see at that point the damage that they have done, which is extremely traumatizing. They do need to see that, and they do need to be aware of it, and they need to take accountability for that, and that is their doing. But it is still very harmful and traumatizing to them as well. They also have to see what happens to their children, because their partner is probably not showing up the same as a parent that they were before, because they are in fight or flight or shut down or freeze, and they have been so traumatized that obviously they're not going to be able to be the best version of themselves or their best parent. And so they have to look at their children in the face every day and see what they've done to their children, which is also very, very difficult. They have lots of feelings of low self-worth because of what they've done, the guilt, the shame. A lot of times they get really stuck in shame, which is part of what I do with people when I work with someone who is the betrayer, is help them get out of that so they can actually help their partner heal and then heal themselves. The other problem with shame is if people get stuck in shame, they never do their healing work to figure out why they did what they did and make sure that they put things in place to never do that again. And so they've already started probably from a place of trauma that led them to behave in this way. And now, as a result of what they have done, there is more trauma. And so they have to go back to the very beginning and work out that first trauma and figure out their why, which is extremely difficult to do. If it were easy for them to do, they would have done the work in the first place or tried to figure out what was going on with them before they ever stepped out on their partner. And so now you have two traumas that they have to deal with, and they've got a traumatized partner and probably a traumatized family that they have to help through everything. And they don't have any skills to do this because they would have not done what they did in the first place. And so it's crucial for someone who has decided to make their relationship work or who has done this to absolutely figure out their why and get tools and techniques to show it better and understand their attachment style and their attachment wounds. Because if they do not figure that out and they do not do the work, they are probably going to do this behavior again and again and again, because it comes from a place where they have wounds and they are using this to numb and escape and avoid. And so they absolutely have to do their work. Almost everybody that I deal with that comes to me and says they want to work on themselves because they've betrayed their partner is extremely remorseful and feels relief when their partner finally finds out, because the amount of the heaviness of carrying the lie. They do not want to continue being a liar and holding all that in and living two separate lives. It is painful. It is not fun like we think it is. So just remember, what you see on the outside does not necessarily match the inside.